Alright guys, so let's be honest about Captain Marvel. And this review won't have any spoilers in it at all, so if you guys want to talk spoilers, feel free to leave a comment down below. And by the way, if you guys are wondering why I sound like shit, it's because I'm sick, so just deal with it, I guess. But before we dive into this review, let me just say a couple things. First of all, I don't know much about Captain Marvel from the comics because I haven't read them, so I'm just basing all of my opinions off the movie itself. Secondly, as I said, I'm basing my opinions just off of the movie, so we're not here to talk about politics or other bullshit. I'm just talking about the film itself. Alright, let's dive in. First impressions. Okay, so let me get this out of the way. This isn't a spoiler, but something I wanted to share about the movie itself. There is an incredibly beautiful Stan Lee tribute at the beginning of this movie, and I honestly got choked up. And the crowd fucking cheered after the tribute was over, and a text appeared on screen saying, "Thank you, Stan." And I really hope they have the same tribute at the beginning of Avengers Endgame as well, because I just thought it was beautiful. Anyway, I probably had the same reaction to the trailers for Captain Marvel as did many others. I wasn't really hyped over it. Some of the shots looked good, but nothing from the trailers really jumped out at me like, wow, that looks cool, I can't wait for that. I wasn't overly excited, but I also didn't think the movie looked bad. A lot of people complain that Captain Marvel looked too boring in some of the shots and needed to smile more. Again, I don't have a problem with this. I just don't get it. Like, a 2-minute trailer is supposed to represent a character's emotions for an entire 2-hour movie? When did any of the other male superheroes have grins on their faces during their movie trailers or on their movie posters? I just think people were kind of being nitpicky when the trailers first came out. However, I will say this about the movie. The trailers definitely didn't do it justice. It's not a boring movie, it's not doom and gloom, and Captain Marvel doesn't look bored out of her fucking mind or look like she's pouting the whole time. After seeing the full movie and several of the trailers, I can definitely say the trailers weren't that great. And I'll explain more of that in a bit. Story. As I said, the trailers didn't do the film justice in my opinion. The trailers were kind of vague, not super interesting, and just showed Carol Danvers kind of kicking some ass and having some back and forth with Nick Fury. It was nothing particularly special. In fact, while I was watching this movie, I was kind of bored during the first 20 to 30 minutes. And without spoiling anything, it was basically just Vers, who is Captain Marvel's name at the beginning of the movie. It was just her running around with the Kree doing some shit, and it was alright, I guess. But after she gets to Earth, that's when the movie really picks up, and it gets a lot more interesting and a lot more funny. That's right, funny. I was also surprised. But I was also not surprised, if that makes any sense. By not surprised, I mean that the MCU movies are traditionally pretty funny. But I was surprised at how humorous this movie was because I didn't laugh at all during the trailers. However, this movie had me laughing out loud. In terms of the actual story itself, it's pretty decent. There are some predictable moments here and there because it is a Marvel film and we kind of know how their formula works by now, but there were also a few surprises as well. In terms of story, it was nothing revolutionary, but it did keep my interest and I enjoyed the hell out of it. The story had heart, it had some emotional moments, it had some hilarious moments, and it had some really inspiring moments as well. Characters. Overall, the characters in this movie were actually pretty damn good. Despite the trailers not giving the best first impression of her, Captain Marvel was actually a pretty alright character. And I know every Marvel character doesn't need to be a wisecracking asshole like Iron Man, but she did have humor to her. It was more subtle and playful, but there was humor there. And thankfully, she also wasn't a Mary Sue like Rey from the new Star Wars trilogy. If you don't know what a Mary Sue is, I'm not going to explain it, you can look it up. Captain Marvel does have growth and she struggles and she fails throughout the film. And although she was a super fun character and I liked Captain Marvel, she definitely wasn't my favorite character in the movie. And then there's Nick Fury. He was absolutely fantastic. One thing that I and many others were excited for about this movie was being able to see a younger, less seasoned, and more naive Nick Fury. And this movie definitely didn't disappoint with him. He was a drastically different person than what we've seen him in other MCU movies, and I absolutely love that. I loved seeing him pal around and goof around with Captain Marvel. They had chemistry, they had some pretty decent banter, and I thought it was a good fucking time. However, my favorite character was definitely Talos. Holy fucking shit. He's probably the funniest character since Korg in Thor Ragnarok. And for those of you that don't know, Talos is one of the shape-shifting aliens called Skrulls, who are the main bad guys of the film. And I'm sure as many of you know, the Skrulls can take the shape of essentially anyone, so it makes for some pretty fun moments in the movie. But the thing I love about Talos is that he would go from being super serious in one scene and emotional, and then in some scenes he would be absolutely fucking hilarious. And I know to some of you that may sound a little bit jarring to go from serious to funny and back to serious, but the movie actually made it work pretty well. Which Marvel does that all the time. I've seen Marvel do that in plenty of other movies. Infinity War was absolutely fucking hilarious at times, but it was also extremely emotional. And Captain Marvel definitely balanced the emotional moments and the humor pretty well. And then there's Goose the cat. And let me just say this. For those of you that have read the comics, which in the comics his name is technically Chewie, not Goose, you already probably know that little interesting detail about Goose. I thought he was just going to be a cute little cat to add laughs into the film, but oh boy. Without giving anything away, let's just say that Goose is an entire character himself. He isn't some useless furball like the Porgs in The Last Jedi that are just present in the movie to sell toys. Goose is awesome and definitely a fun character in the movie, and he had me laughing quite a bit. So in my opinion, Captain Marvel, Nick Fury, Talos, and Goose were the standout characters in this movie. I mean, there were plenty of other characters in the movie, but none of them were as interesting or as fun as the four I just mentioned. Visuals. So as with pretty much every other Marvel film, the visuals are pretty damn good. The colors popped, the CGI looked good, the cinematography and camera work was beautiful, and everything just flowed together very well. So yeah. I mean, there really isn't that much to say here other than that the visuals were good like every other MCU movie. Well, most of the MCU movies. Black Panther definitely had a few moments where it had some pretty shitty CGI, not gonna lie. Action. Like I said about the visuals, when it comes to MCU movies, you're gonna get some pretty good action scenes, and this movie was no different. The action scenes were dope as hell. Captain Marvel kicked ass, Nick Fury kicked ass, all of the people had their fair share of ass kicking, and it looked awesome. The last act of this movie was pretty good and had some really good action scenes and some fun character moments, but there wasn't one particular action scene that really stuck out to me or that really impressed me, like the battle on Titan in Avengers Infinity War, or the club fight scene in Black Panther, but the action scenes were good. However, I was kind of expecting a final fight between Captain Marvel and the main villain of the movie, but there really wasn't one. I know most superheroes have a final fight scene between our hero and the main villain, but this movie didn't exactly have that. They did something a little bit different for the final confrontation between Captain Marvel and the main villain of the movie, and it was actually pretty cool. I'm slightly bummed out it wasn't really a fight scene, but if you see the movie, you'll understand why they chose the route they took, and I think it fit really well for the story. In closing, at the end of the day, Marvel has provided us with another solid movie to their roster. Now, is this the best MCU movie ever made? No. To be honest, I wouldn't even put this in my top 5 favorite MCU movies. But it's also not one of my least favorite MCU films. It's somewhere in the middle, I'd say. I didn't think this movie shoved any politics or any agenda down my throat. It was just a cool story with fun characters, and it provides us some interesting backstory to Nick Fury, and it's a good way to introduce us to Captain Marvel before we see her in Avengers Endgame. The thing is, this is a movie for children and adults alike. It's a movie for boys and girls. It's really a movie for everyone. And this is going to sound cheesy as hell, but the most meaningful takeaway that I got from this movie was that you can't let people hold you down. People in life will try to hold you back and try to limit your abilities, but you need to fight for what you believe in, and if you fall, get the fuck back up and try again until you succeed. Because we're all human and failure is just a part of the journey. Overall, I'd give Captain Marvel a solid 7 out of 10. It's an above average action movie and another fun entry in the Marvel franchise that has lovable characters and an interesting story. But it does take a little bit to get going, and some of the bad guys are also kind of boring. I think Brie Larson did a good job as Captain Marvel. I think she's a great actress. I mean, she's won an Academy Award, so of course she's a good actress. But for me personally, she wouldn't have been my first choice for the role. I would have loved to have seen either Lily Reinhart from Riverdale, by the way, I fucking hate that show, or Catherine Langford from 13 Reasons Why, who has coincidentally already been cast in Avengers Endgame in an undisclosed role. Little fun fact for you. Or Evan Rachel Wood from Westworld. In my opinion, I think any one of those 3 actresses would have been great for the role of Captain Marvel. I think they could pull off the look, and all 3 of them, especially Catherine Langford and Evan Rachel Wood, have the acting chops to pull it off. But anyway, I would definitely recommend seeing this movie in theaters, especially if you're already a Marvel fan, and it does connect to Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame in some cool ways. Also, as always with every Marvel film, be sure to stay through the credits for 2 extra scenes. The post-credits scene is more funny than it is important, but the mid-credits scene, oh my fucking god. Let's just say the mid-credits scene is really gonna get you hyped for Avengers Endgame. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you thought of Captain Marvel if you've seen it. it. If you haven't seen it and you've just seen the trailers, don't go into my comments saying this movie's bad, it looks stupid. You haven't seen it, so shut the fuck up. So if you have seen it, let me know. Was it better than you expected? Was it terrible? Talk to me down in the comments. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you all later. Or Evan Rachel Wood from, I can't say that at all. Or Evan Rachel Wood from, I can't say that, dude. I'm fucking stumbling over my dick. Or Evan Rachel Wood from Westworld. Or Evan Rachel Wood from Westworld. I can't fucking say that!
Baby, come.